everybody. Excited to welcome Valeria Aguerri today on the Honeit Talks podcast. Valeria, I enjoyed working with you and learning about HireBoost. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic today. We can talk a little bit about the nature of global recruitment, right? We've got recruiters sitting anywhere in the world, talking to candidates anywhere in the world. It really is now a global communication and global talent pool. I guess we'd love to learn a little bit more about HireBoost, how you got into recruiting, how you differentiate yourself from other recruiters, right? And maybe we could
Mm,
start with just how did you fall into recruiting and walk us through how you came to be at a global recruiter at HireBoost.
right. Thank you so much, Nick, for the invitation. I'm really excited to be here. Also, a Honeit user and a fan of the tool. So, also glad to be touching on that as well. But I am the CEO and founder of HireBoost, and we are hiring partner for US companies that want to hire remote talent in Latin America. So actually, my recruitment background is interesting. I feel like most people have an interesting story with recruitment because most people don't go to school for that, right?
Totally. Yeah.
So I actually lived in the US for 10 years. And my background in recruitment actually starts in the career coaching, which I think might be a little bit common. I'm not sure. But when I lived in Austin, Texas, and I was working in the startup world there, and as for most people, we know that job hunting is daunting. It is not easy. And I moved there with no job, and I thought it was going to be easy to get a job, but I found out, okay, this is not as easy as I thought. It's a new city, it's a new industry. It was tech, the new industry for me. It's a competitive market over there, and I just like had to learn how to get a job in less time because I was under a visa and I
Mm.
only had like 3 months. So I pretty much network a lot with organizations, with career coaches, and I ended up getting a great job. So uh, after that, really frustrating season of my life, I promised myself, okay, I'm gonna help people how to find jobs because this was really hard. And if I did it as an international student, with no contacts, with no experience in the industry, anyone could do it. And I want to help people and teach people how to do it in less time. So I did it as a side hustle, actually, like the whole career coaching. I was involved with some organizations in Austin that help professionals to get jobs, like Latinas in Tech, Prospanica. So professional organizations that help professionals to boost their careers. And I collaborated with them for like a year and a half while I was there. And I fell in love with like the whole career coaching. And I actually worked in sales and marketing for a long time. And this was my side hustle. And then I transitioned, I say by mistake, by no, I don't like the word by mistake. It was just by a coincidence, or it was actually, I think, meant to be because a friend at the time, he was working for a marketing agency in the US. And at the time I was, doing the career coaching on the side, and I was helping professionals in Latin America to get jobs, to help them get remote jobs. And then my friend was like, hey, we need to hire people. We want to hire people in Latin America. You help people get jobs. Why don't you help us get candidates? And I
Right.
was like, yeah, that sounds like I could help with that. And that was my first client. It was meant to be like I was not looking for it, but organically it happened. And then started with friends from, one friend recommended me to another one, and then that one to another one. And then I realized, okay, I actually have a business here. So that's how HireBoost was born. So uh, we do the recruitment for US companies, and that want to hire remote talent in Latin America. But actually, on the other side, we still have the B2C part of the business. We still have the career coaching.
Okay.
So we still help professionals, that want to land remote jobs. So that's my recruitment story. That's how we ended up there. And you asked me also how we differentiate. And I think
Well,
that's,
yeah, we can
uh-huh.
we can dig into that. But I love the Genesis story, right? Because you're right. And everybody falls into this profession. I did the same thing in New York, like just went to an agency looking for work and thought they could help me find a job and then ended up getting a job at the company, right? Like so just everybody kind of falls into it. But I love that it marries your skills of sales and marketing, right?
Mm,
With that of helping people and the job search. I mean, natural thing because recruitment fundamentally is it's a sales job, it's a marketing job, it's a communication job. It has all of that kind of packed into a unique profession there. So that's interesting how your skills and your day job did translate well in addition to the passion, which is a
absolutely.
perfect
It's so
combo.
true. Recruitment has all of those skills. I also feel if you're a people person by nature, it's a good business for you. You need to care about people. We're in the people business. So I think also that's a very important component of what makes a great recruiter. I think that's a big piece of it, right? That you really care about
Yeah.
people and about your candidates. So if you have that plus the sales and the marketing, you're up for recruitment.
And kind of that natural curiosity. I think that's always something that's a good skill for recruiters, right? You have to be interested in kind of learning about a potential industry or company
Mm,
or how a certain job functions. I mean, there's just a lot to kind of unpack or uncover as you go kind of deeper into a specific industry or niche or function within a company. But I think when you and I first spoke, you were in Nicaragua, is that right? And then now you're in Mexico City. So you're digital nomading around? Is that what's happening here?
Yes,
Yeah.
so originally I am from Nicaragua. I have a little bit of Spanish as well. So I was at the time living in the beach in Nicaragua for a little while, but now I am in Mexico. So as you say, we are in a global world, and now a lot of the candidates are global. A lot of the companies are working remote. Actually, the whole team in HireBoost is remote. Everyone is different in different places. But also with the companies that we work with, a lot of these companies are remote friendly. Or if they have a headquarter in the US, they do have remote uh, teams
Got
spread
it.
out across
So
different
you're picking good
countries.
clients too, because the remote sell is a much easier sell to candidates nowadays than a on-site job. So if you're working with innovative companies that have that remote or willing to hire anywhere, you can then widen your talent pool as well.
That is very true. I will say that it is one of those perks or benefits that now a lot of candidates are specifically looking for that, right? Some candidates, as you may have seen, if they don't have if the position doesn't offer remote, they won't go for it. So it's now a quote unquote benefit, right? That I don't even know. For some people, it's not a negotiable anymore. So we definitely have some candidates and a lot of people that look for us that they come with that in mind. They're like, I want a remote job. I want to have that flexibility. I want to be able to work from home if I want. So it is, I would say it definitely helps to get candidates for sure. And also the companies, like you said, that we're working with, they're they're very flexible. They care about having good results, and they empower their teams. If you are gonna have remote teams, you kind of have that in your culture, right? You have to trust people, empower them, give them the tools to be successful, and know that they're gonna do the job and that the results are gonna speak for itself.
It's interesting as an external recruiter when you're representing a client and you're working with different clients. It used to be that like having a big logo, a client with a big brand was helpful, right? And that you could be reaching out from a particular company that's recognizable to the candidate, and they're like, oh yeah, I'd like to work for that company. always a bit more challenging to work with companies that were unknown or smaller, right? So then it became kind of how do you position that as a mission-driven company or a company solving a really interesting problem that someone could grab onto, right? But now this whole idea of remote, it's almost like this new, in the triangle, good company solving a big problem also can be remote. It's kind of like a
Mm,
recruiter's dream. You could reach out to a great candidate anywhere in the world that might be open to work or exploring new roles and consider them for this particular role without worrying about the reload, without worrying about all those number of variables that used to be the case, right? And so it's, I would imagine, a real advantage for recruiters nowadays if you've got clients that have that flexibility. I mean, you could be making placements and making good money, um, without some of these limitations that other recruiters have with local zip codes and commutes and things like that. So, and I think for the employer, they're opening themselves up into a much broader and stronger talent pool. So maybe we could talk a little bit about, that. How are companies in the United States you're seeing opening up Latin American headquarters? When I lived in, Costa Rica for 5 years, San Jose, we had a number of really great big companies that had their Central America, Latin America headquarters in San Jose and tapped
mhm.
into all the local community colleges that have technical colleges and a lot of skilled workers. Is that what you're bringing and connecting with HireBoost? I mean, you're able to then staff up Latin American offices or, again, find remote talent in Latin America to work with US based companies. I guess would love to hear that model and how you're connecting those two.
Right. So the beauty of the remote work and how it has exploded, is that you don't have to have offices
Yeah.
in
Okay.
in the country, right? For example, in your case, you were talking about Costa Rica. You don't need to have office and registered company there to be able to hire talent from there. That's the beauty of it. Now you have global payment solutions like Deal. They actually are one of our partners, and you can hire them as international contractors. So you hire these employees as international contractors. You give them a full-time salary and you give them vacations and holidays. But you will pay them the salary, you don't deduct any taxes, and then the candidate is responsible for paying taxes on their own country. And you can pay them through tools like Deal. And now there's so many ways to pay them through wire transfer, through different applications like PayPal, Pioneer, Wise, and so on. The beauty of remote hiring or just uh, being in a global work is that now there is a solution for everything. So it really all these tools and have enabled companies to hire easily all this talent in Latin America. So we're the bridge, right? We are the bridge for companies that want to hire in Latin America, and there are a few great benefits why companies are loving to hire remote talent in Latin America. Number one is like the logistics, right? Like the time zone is the same or very similar. Uh, the candidates are much more Americanized at other parts of the world just because of the proximity. So we were born and raised with the American culture very ingrained in our own culture. So it's very easy to sync teams because the culture is similar in a lot of
Mm.
ways. Like we're very Americanized. Also, there is a great English, compared to other countries that the accent might be stronger and harder to understand. Latin American people, most now schools and universities, they teach you English since you're young. So most people know English since a young age, and you have an excellent English. And a lot of them are even used to working with the US companies already, or even they lived in the US or they have a US degree, just like I did. You have a lot of that as well in Latin America. So that's some of the great benefits of why companies are looking for to hire remote talent in Latin America. Of course, the I will say the biggest one is on top of all of that is they want to reduce costs a little bit, right? They usually pay better wages than Latin America, but not the same as the US, that, sometimes
Yeah,
they could be really high, and some companies may want to scale, but they just don't have the budget. So they have to look for other options that are equal of quality, but maybe a little bit more accessible. So that's why.
that's a really interesting point that you bring up, because I think employees and folks in the United States have to kind of recognize that too, that if everybody's going ooh ooh ooh, I want to work remote and I want to work remote and kind of demanding, that is a slippery slope, right? Where companies could actually say, well, listen, I know you don't want to come into the office, but we could actually find someone with your skill set for maybe less salary elsewhere. And not even just in the United States, where there's less expensive places to live in the United States, but take it one step further and hire a great resource in another country, right? We kind of saw that with offshoring in the past for kind of a cost saving benefit. But I think what's happened now is that if companies are actually just willing to, they could let their employee not commute and still pay San Francisco wages, or strongly consider opening it up to more remote in other states, or that next step is to consider great technical talent or talent in other countries. And you're right, Latin America, Central America, great time zones, easy flights, could meet for on sites as needed, all that stuff that could happen, and just as if you were 3 hours away from the office, right? And so it is interesting. It's like, I think companies are trying to figure out that kind of new policy around what is their new future of work. Is it a hybrid approach where they do
Mhm.
need to be restrained to candidates within a commutable distance, or is it more truly remote that now also changes the hiring planning,
Yeah.
around where do we post these jobs, where do the recruiters focus their efforts, and then how do you cast a wider net to new markets? So is that what brought you to Mexico City? Do you have clients, or the talent in Mexico City was attractive, or was that more of just a personal choice?
Definitely, it played the professional part of it was really important. As you know, Mexico is the bridge between US and Latin America. So it is a really great point to be able to meet your clients in the US. Is a flight, easy flight. If you have to go to a conference, to a meeting, I'll easily could get there in an hour and a half to Texas, for
Yeah.
example.
Well, direct flights, I would think, anywhere, right?
Direct flights
Yeah,
almost
amazing.
anywhere. New York, Texas is really like a really well-connected city. And then also you have great talent as well in here. A lot of the candidates we help place are in Mexico. So it seemed like a strategic move in terms of the business. And then also, of course, is an amazing country as well. Like I'm in Mexico City at the moment. So it is a city very rich in culture and opportunities. The people are great. So also it made a lot of sense for as a personal life. So I was like, you know what? It made sense for both personal and professional. Let me just go there. And now I'm here. So hopefully
Awesome.
for a longer time. Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about your company, HireBoost. Can you talk a little bit about how the firm is set up? Maybe talk a little bit about the type of engagements you do. Do you do retained search? Do you do contingent search? Do you embed yourselves with companies and kind of as an embedded or RPO recruiter? Or do you do a little above, depending on what the client needs? And then I think the follow-up would be, how do you structure your team, right? Do you have
Mm-hmm.
recruiters who do full cycle sourcing and account management? Do you divide that up? I'd just kind of love to learn about how you focus there.
Yeah, so let me do it by parts, right? You first
Mhm.
asked me about how our model is. So we have both. So it's contingency, right? Some companies are like, "Hey, I want you to help me with recruiting for example, these three positions. We already um, have all the setup to do the contracts and pay them. So they just pay us a commission. We do that with a lot of our clients. Some of our clients that they're not used to hiring in Latin America and they don't know how the contract or payroll, they don't want to take care of that. We also can, it's more like the outsourcing model that they pay us and then we pay the candidates. So we also do that. But we work a lot with the contingency model. I'll say most of our clients are with that. And then in terms of how we're structured, so actually it's a little bit of a hybrid because when we started, we separate it, right? Like the sourcing and
Okay.
then the account management. But as we're growing, we're hiring full-time recruiters, like not full-time, like full end-to-end recruiters, like people that can take, the whole project. However, we always tell them like if you need extra resources for sourcing, for example, that takes a lot of time. We have people that help them with a lot of things. So we have some people that are just doing administrative things. So they help them to set up the jobs in different boards
Got it.
and in different
That's great.
groups and the
So full life cycle
sourcing.
recruiters with a little admin, centralized admin support, and then even kind of some
Exactly.
centralized sourcing support if additional uh,
Exactly. So,
um,
yeah. So because that's, the recruiters, we want to take off their plate a lot of the administrative tasks that it takes a lot of time. They don't want to do it. We want them to be building the relationships, doing the interviews, working with the client, and not worrying too much about the admin or sourcing. So we do provide that. And also we empower them with anything they need from the tools, right? Like Honeit is one of them. So every new recruiter gets anything they need in terms of softwares, like of course LinkedIn Recruiter, Honeit, and so on. So I believe that you have to empower your recruiters in your team to make them successful. So and for HireBoost, that's giving them some admin support, giving them all the tools needed, and of
great.
course with the training and so on.
We're starting to hear actually as recruiters are looking for jobs and interviewing with companies and things like that, that the toolkit and the tool set is starting to be something that's discussed even in the interview process, right? Which I thought that's kind of an interesting thing. And if you were in marketing and you were applying for marketing jobs, you would kind of want to know the marketing stack and does this company have great tools that make my job easier? And or if I'm a salesperson, do they have great tools that help me make more money, et cetera? Like we're starting to see that being asked and hearing feedback from recruiters who are now interviewing. And there's been a lot of turnover in the US with kind of downsizing and layoffs and stuff like that, restructuring. A lot of that happens. So there's a lot of recruiters interviewing right now. But that's becoming a topic. What are the tools I'm going to have to make my job easier, to make myself more productive, and
Mm-hmm.
for extra recruiters to make more money? So I think that's
Absolutely.
very it's a great question to ask companies. It's like if you're just doing the same thing every other recruiter is doing and same way they've been doing it for decades, right? It's not going to get you a competitive advantage, right? So that might lead to like the last question. How does HireBoost, you're competing with bigger RPO companies, you're competing with other contingent firms for business, you're competing for talent, right? Recruiting talent, things like that. What are you doing to differentiate yourself not only to candidates, and show them a great candidate experience, but also to clients, showing them a great client experience and that you can deliver kind of on the schedule and, exceed expectations.
I love that question. And actually, coming from the career coaching background has helped a lot to build the foundations of HireBoost, and I'll tell you why. So, coming from being in touch with the candidates as a career coach, I'll hear all the time their complaints, right? When looking for a job and complaining about recruiters or companies or what are the pitfalls of the hiring process. And you would hear the usual, right? They ghost me. I don't get any feedback. I don't know what the status is. They don't give me the information that I needed. I don't feel they set me up for success. So when I started the recruiting agency, I like to say we're a hiring partner, but I said to myself, I don't want to build another just agency that focuses on numbers and hitting the goals, but forgets about the experience of the candidates or the clients. So I put that in the center of the business. So actually, we and I know a lot of people say this, like, oh, we give a great candidate experience, but we actually that's like the pillar of the company. So we give for example, after every interview, each one gets feedback on the spot, like regarding the interview, right? So usually our first interviews are longer than the usual because we give we separate time to tell them like, hey, will you like to hear the feedback? And they're like, what, you're gonna give me feedback about the
Yeah.
interview? Like that's
Hey,
something that I hear from the candidates, like they have never received it, or it's like one of the few times in their whole life that they receive it. And we tell them in real time, what they did good, what things could improve. Sometimes we even suggest like, hey, you could fix this little thing in your curriculum, in your resume, or hey, in this question, you could improve this by doing this. So there are a few things that we have found when with putting the candidate experience as a pillar and as the value we bring. Number one, once they get the offer, they are excited. They're like, wow, like this company, because we're representing our clients, right?
Yeah,
Like it's not
exactly.
hire, but we're representing our clients. So they're like, oh wow, I'm excited to sign with your company. This experience was amazing from the beginning. So hiring, the conversions rates are incredible. Then the retentions rate are pretty great too, right? Like from the beginning, you set the tone. So that's why the recruiting process and piece is so key. It's like the first thing that candidates are experiencing from you. If you don't start with the right foot, then it's hard to change those first impressions. So I would say number one, that's like one thing that we did. I always tell our candidates we're not the biggest, but we truly care. And we have amazing testimonials from like the candidates, like wow, like this was like the best experience I ever had, and I got the feedback. I felt mentor through the whole process. So that is important. So just believing in the experience and also the education around it, right? Sometimes a
Mm.
candidate just really need a little bit of information, and then they will do a better job, right? That's like empowering them with tools and resources, or even just the mentoring.
Are you
So
helping prep them on some of that? Because I know on your like the phone screens and the kind of when you're qualifying a candidate, you're also probably prepping them or explaining them. I mean, is there some of that coaching that you've taken from your past life and you're injecting
totally.
that into the
So all of our
yeah.
recruiters are, when we all of our recruiters on our team like have been trained to like kind of coach the candidate. So we do it in their interview, after the interview. Sometimes we help them with certain things in their resume. We help them, or no, we help them. We tell them to fix it. So sometimes we even provide a template. Like that template doesn't work for U.S. companies. Maybe in your country in Latin America, that's okay, but in the US, no, let's, change that. Even like small
Good
things
feedback.
like that, some cultural differences that you might experience, like the resume, right? Is in Latin America, a lot of people put pictures of themselves, like that's common. And we're like, no, in the US, you don't put a picture, right? Like, so little quote unquote, right? They're not as
Yeah,
little when
subtle.
you,
Yeah.
yeah. So we help them, we set them for success, and then it's also actually a really great way to find out if they're coachable, right? Also, that help us to
Mm.
filter the candidates better, because we're like, at the end of the interview, we, ask for permission, we give the feedback, and you will be served. Most people, I will say, they're pretty grateful, but then some people don't take feedback that well. So
Hmm.
then you're like, oh, okay, you don't take that feedback that well. Maybe you're not a good fit for this culture, right? Because like
True. Yeah.
it's a startup. You're gonna be, they're gonna coach you and they're gonna train you, and maybe you're not the best fit, right? So also it helps you to filter. So and I would say that's one thing that we differentiate. Also, we have a multi-channel approach, and that's like one of the things that our like companies come to us, especially because it's a new market for a lot of companies, and the way you recruit in the US might not be necessarily the same as in Latin America. So
Mm.
in the way that a lot of the Latin American candidates are hanging out in other boards that are not the same as the US, right? So in
Okay.
the US, other than LinkedIn, you have Indeed, you have AngelList, you have, depending on the industry, there are like a lot. In Latin America, you have LinkedIn, but then the others that I mentioned are not, right? The same. And for example, in Latin America, A lot of people hang out in like Slack communities, Facebook communities, even WhatsApp, Telegram. Like it's just a different market and they behave different, and you need to find candidates where they're hanging out, right? So also that's something that that's the value we also bring. We know the market, we know where our candidates are. A lot of them, they are not on LinkedIn, but they might be hanging out and in a WhatsApp group that they check every day, right? Those are some of the differences, right? When you come, and that's why usually companies go to a hiring partner like HireBoost, because they know, okay, like I want to get the best candidates, but it's a different market. I don't know how to get the best candidates or how to find them. And then also in terms of the tools, right? We try to be very modern in our approach. So we rely on a lot of the tools that are out in the market, going back to the point that you were saying about how now it's really important to have a really good tool case and just relying on software. So actually, uh, as I told you over email, like Honeit has been great. It has helped us streamline the process. Our clients are loving it. Even some of our clients, we are collaborating with them, and some, we're even removing a step from the process because the hiring manager might be like, "Oh, you have this amazing tool. I don't need to ask the same questions. Can you just ask these questions?" And then, instead of having 3 more steps, you just have 2 more steps. So actually clients love when you facilitate their life, right? Like that's what you're here for as a hiring partner. You want to bring good candidates, first of all, and number two, make their life easier. So I always tell my team, how can we be more efficient? How can we do things better? Not only for the candidates, but of course for the client. So I think just being always constantly asking yourself, how can you do things better from a process point of view, system point of view, tools point of view. Actually, that's like one of the, not because I'm on your podcast, but because actually like we are loving it. I think just finding ways to improve how you're doing things and how you could improve how your client is doing things is gonna set you up and then your client up for success.
I love it. Yeah, no, I mean, there's so much packed in there, right? There's the candidate experience, which gets a lot of attention, right? In terms of treating them well, right? Candidates are customers, so that's like a natural marketing kind of connection, right? Treat your customers
Right.
great, teach your candidates. There's the recruiter experience, right? Which is often kind of forgotten about, right?
Yeah.
What burns out recruiters? What's tedious about our job? How can we do the fun stuff, which is talking to people and kind of automate some of the tedious stuff, right? Which is everything before, during, and after the call. And so that's where we kind of spend our time at Honeit, thinking about like improving the recruiter experience and enabling recruiters to like do what we love, not do all the other stuff that kind of burns us out. But then to your point, the hiring manager experience or the hiring team experience, right? And that's often completely overlooked, right? And in terms of how a recruiter delivers their work products to a hiring team, is that going to help save them time, accelerate next steps, make better data-driven decisions, or is that going to go back to what recruiting has done for decades? Is the hiring manager has to pick up the call and have the same conversation
Mm-hmm.
3 more times, right?
Exactly.
So
So
how can we heal
actually,
that? Yeah, how can we avoid
actually,
that?
to your point, when I came to Honeit and looked for you guys, I was trying to improve the hiring experience. The hiring, how we present the candidates to the client. That was like our main goal. But I was not expecting that I was gonna love it so much as a recruiter because before Honeit, I was like trying to pay attention, take notes, making sure I was not forgetting the details. But then when Honeit, I'm like, I'm just listening. I'm just really paying attention. I'm like looking for the cues and seeing how they communicate verbally. And I didn't have the bandwidth to do like 5 things at the same time. Now I do because I'm like, oh, I can focus on listening pretty well and being really present and then taking some notes, but more on like, oh, how I what I think, right? More than what they're saying, but like more on
Mm.
like, oh, would this person will be a good fit? Um, or how their communication style instead of like what like, oh, they did this and their budget was and their result, because at the end of the day, that's information that is already on the resume or it's still important, but then also we're there for looking above the just the facts or the results. We're also there to see more like the soft skills, the cultural fit. So and so actually, as a recruiter experience that you were saying that is often forgotten, like I was not expecting to find that, and I am like in love with it, right? Like it improved the experience so much. And actually the new recruiters that are coming in, a lot of them didn't know the tool, and then they are like, oh wow, this is so powerful, I didn't know it existed. So it's been a game changer for us, and I just encourage all your listeners that they are always asking themselves how things could be improved, whether that be it with a new tool or a new process or just whatever it may be. The market is changing a lot. Um, Things and new tools are coming up every day and best practices. So just stay up to date. Um, Not doing things that, like how you're doing it all the time and just trying to see how you can improve and see what's different out there. I think that's always um
Kind of keeping an open mind
yeah,
too.
yeah.
I think we talk to recruiters kind of all experience ranges. Some are new to the profession, some have been doing it for 40 years. But it's funny. It's like it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it necessarily. I think to your point, it's just like there's folks that have a bit more open mind into how things could be done, and that there is potential innovation that could help not only candidates but hiring teams and the recruiter experience. So I think it's kind of that open minded to kind of keep sharpening the sword, which is going to make you better, which is going to provide more value, and it's going to elevate this profession, which is such an interesting profession, right? We get to talk to so many different people and learn about so many different jobs and careers. So I love it. I full circle going back to your career coaching experience. I think that's just so neat that you combine your kind of your passion for helping people with the pain of your own job search, with the skills in sales and marketing, and came up with what is now a really innovative recruiting firm that's filling a gap, solving a real need, and kind of bringing this global community of talent together. So, Valeria, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been great getting to know you, as a Honeit customer, but fun to get to know you better even here. And we're always looking for ways to improve. So I'm excited to get your feedback on our roadmap and think about how we can improve the tool as well. So.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Nick. It was such a fun conversation. And yeah, feel free to reach out to anyone in your community. You can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free
Yeah, where
to
can
reach
folks
out to
find you?
me.
Exactly. If they need
Yes.
help recruiting internationally and building a global team.
Exactly. Yeah. Feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. That's the best way to do it. Feel free to send me a direct message. You can find me by my name, Valeria Aguerri, or just maybe you can put it on the notes, the
Sure.
LinkedIn. But feel free to reach out. Happy to have a conversation regarding best practices or how to hire a remote talent in Latin America. I'm an open book. I am very approachable, so feel free to say hi and we can have a virtual coffee as well if you want.
Fantastic. Valeria, I'm excited to see where we chat next. Mexico City, maybe Barcelona. I don't know. Where in
Yes,
the world is Valeria? So
I love it. Okay, Nick, thank
thanks
you
again.
so much.
Have a
Bye.
good one. Take care.